Now that the Chicago Bears offseason program is done, let's check in on where Caleb Williams has been thriving so far and where he's still experiencing the normal rookie struggles.
You are Locked On Bears, your daily Chicago Bears podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
This is Locked On Bears, and I'm your host, Lauren Cox. I'm here to bring you your daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. You can follow me on Twitter at CoxSports1. You can follow the podcast at Locked On Bears on all of your favorite social media platforms, including the Locked On Bears YouTube channel, where you can keep up with all of our video podcasts as well. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. On the show today, we check in on Caleb Williams' development, the progress we've seen from him so far, the areas he still needs to grow, and what that looks like through rookie minicamp, OTAs, and now mandatory veteran minicamp, all in the books. The Bears are on their summer break now, so we won't really see from Caleb Williams or the team until training camp at this stage of the process. So it's a good time to kind of check in and say, where are we now? How far have we gotten? What is still in front of us? And I'd like to start with an area that is kind of the main spot where we've seen Caleb still need to work on some of the kinks. All of it is normal and expected. You know, any rookie quarterback should have things that are just going to take time to get used to at the NFL level and adjust to. And in his case, in Chicago right now, a lot of it is about operating the cadence and the snap count at the line of scrimmage, making sure that everyone is on the same page with the communication and the intonation of his voice at the line. And there's a difference between cadence and snap count in this conversation. The snap count is part of the cadence, but there's more to what Caleb is communicating at the line of scrimmage and making sure that the players know the difference and know what the terminology means, because everyone is learning this new Shane Waldron offense in addition to Caleb Williams. And I thought your left guard, Teven Jenkins, who's been around a little bit now, somehow one of the more senior members of this offensive line, I think the longest tenured starter, at least on the offensive line. Nate Davis is older than him and been in the league longer, but like in terms of the player who's been on the Bears offensive line the longest, it's Teven Jenkins. He's kind of your senior leader there. But anyway, Jenkins has been experiencing this as a part of the Bears offensive line. I thought, Caleb explained this a little bit, but I thought Jenkins did a really good job of kind of going in depth on what this looks like when it comes to the offensive line trying to hear Caleb's cadence versus, sometimes the defense and the defensive line across from you is also shouting stuff and trying to communicate their own thing. And when you're an offensive lineman, you're not looking back at the quarterback all the time. And you're not necessarily like seeing him say things to you, but you're trying to hear him. You're hearing a lot going on. And then some parts are part of the snap count and some parts are like him calling out protections and formation changes, audibles and stuff. So trying to practice that and get guys on the same page. We've heard that there have been problems with, false starts, guys not quite getting lined up or, coming off the snap all at the same time as they're supposed to. And I thought Teven Jenkins did a good job of kind of outlining what that looks like and how they're working on it.
With the cadence, it takes a while, but from an offensive lineman standpoint, what is the process of learning how Caleb kind of calls things in his voice?
It means a lot. That's what engages us to get off that ball, and that's what's emphasized in this offense. We communicate to him what we need from him, and he has a lot of other things going on. He's running the whole offense, but one thing that we always try to tell him is voice louder, emphasize even if we're going on two, emphasize that second hut, to make the defense draw off sides, get a free play, and those plays that we got last year, that we got that free touchdown to DJ, that was on a free play, the emphasis on that hut, the defense makes it real, thinks it's real, so they get off. And just communicating to him that those voice inflections are very important and everything.
This might sound dumb, but obviously you guys are practicing that, hearing him out on the field. Is that stuff that's also going on in the classroom of just straight up vocal exercises for you to hear what it sounds like?
Yeah, we do walkthroughs in the indoor area and just working on cadences, and we have we have like one of the best move teams on the whole NFL. Like Billings is probably top voice of doing that, and he's got us a lot, and that's one thing that we got to get better at. And the one thing we always do is in the ITC, what we do is try to imitate that move call with him doing his regular cadence.
How do you do that? Sorry. How do
You want me to yell in there?
Just yelling at him?
No, you want me to yell? No, you want me to yell like Billings?
What does it sound like?
Move! And then, and then you get back into the cadence. And you try to say ready, and then Billings yell move, and then you try to not jump off sides and get used to hearing him back there getting loud.
So Teven gets into some of the even more intricacies there than we don't need to get into the details of move calls and things like that. But just know, the defensive line is calling stuff, and then okay, if the defensive line shifts, then the offensive line might have to shift its protection, right? Like that's sort of like getting used to Andrew Billings calling things out, and then okay, listening back to Caleb and understanding what's part of the cadence versus the snap count there, and making sure that they're staying on top of everything. There's a lot of different moving parts there to get used to with a new quarterback. And later on, Jenkins went on to say, if the cadence is the worst problem Caleb Williams is dealing with right now, then you're in a really good space. If this is your biggest issue as a quarterback, then that means a lot of other things are going very, very well. And I thought that was really good perspective for Teven Jenkins to have here. This is normal, new QB, new offense, new teammates, all trying to learn the same thing stuff, and that Caleb is doing so well in so many of the other areas that it's not something that anyone should be particularly concerned about. And it just takes time for everybody to hear him go through it and get those reps under their belt and get used to how he's going to call things and his style of, operating at the line of scrimmage. Caleb Williams himself said, in college, for him, at USC and at Oklahoma, they were kind of a clap-based offense. And a lot of college offenses this way, where the quarterback claps to kind of signal the snap count and to sort of signal things to his offensive line and to his entire offense. Caleb said he did vocal cadence before that. He said it's been 4 years, so it's not like it's brand new to him or something he hasn't had to do before. It's just not something he's had to do lately. So it's kind of him getting back into the process of delivering that cadence and obviously now at a much higher, more advanced level with NFL players as opposed to, high school or whatever the last time he was doing that prior to this. So that's where it's not brand new for Caleb and where it's not like something he doesn't know how to do or is still learning how to do in the first place. It's more like getting back to it and learning how to do it in this offense, with this terminology, with these teammates in this city and at this level of football play. So that's where we've seen Caleb maybe struggle a little bit. And of course, he's thrown some interceptions at practice. That's, again, every quarterback does that. It's not like a overly concerning thing. But we've also seen him respond to those interceptions well, and also I think surprised this Bears defense a little bit with what he has been capable of doing against them in practice. So we'll hear from one of the key leaders of this Bears defense about where, Caleb got him a couple of times and caught him off guard a little bit. And I think his words were, we were a little heated with how Caleb got us with that, and motivates this defense to then play that much harder and try and test Caleb that much more. That's next on Locked On Bears. This episode of Locked On Bears is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Summertime means baseball, the NBA Finals, the Stanley Cup Final, and more, and you can bet it all on FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $200 you can use to bet on everything from the Finals MVP to Caleb Williams' prop bets for passing yards this season, Rome Odunze's receiving yards, odds for Offensive Rookie of the Year, Matt Eberflus for Coach of the Year. There's already betting lines for Bears Week 1 against the Titans. I mean, there's so many different ways you can get ahead in the football season with FanDuel. So to get your $200 in bonus bets, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and add a big win to your summer bucket list. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Caleb Williams may have had some cadence issues along the way, but he's done a lot of other really encouraging things in practice for this Bears offense. And again, just how we don't want to get overly concerned or down about the cadence being some kind of red flag or concern or issue, not really a big deal. We also shouldn't necessarily overinflate all the good things he's done either, right? Like I always try and keep us a little bit more somewhere in the middle and not too hyped, but not too overly panicked and concerned or worried when things are bad either. And so we've seen him be an effective passer, right? Like pick up a lot of where he's left off in college and show his teammates on both sides of the ball that he's a number one overall pick caliber quarterback. There have been a few interceptions at practices that have been open to the media where, he holds onto the ball a tick long and tries to throw something over the middle of the field that he should have gotten rid of a little bit earlier, but was kind of waiting for something to develop that wasn't there and then threw it and then ends up kind of getting picked off in a similar kind of way a couple of times. But that's been really the main concern. And we've also seen him go from throwing that interception to the very next play, firing a deep ball downfield for a touchdown to Velus Jones, right? Not a deep ball touchdown to Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, DJ Moore, where you might expect those receivers are going to be a little bit more open or a little bit more likely to be the deep ball target that can make a quarterback look good by being open or making a difficult catch deep. No, Velus Jones, a deep ball to Velus Jones for a touchdown feels just a little bit more impressive and a little bit more of a more positive reflection of Caleb Williams' ability than like, oh, yes, the elite wide receiver caught a touchdown from the quarterback. Maybe it's a little bit less impressive from the quarterback, but Velus Jones on the very next play after one of those interceptions says a little something about Caleb's ability to make plays and also to let the bad plays go instantly, not let it linger, not let it affect him on the next play, just really kind of forget about it, move on, the next throw, shoot or shoot, right? Every shot's going to go in, every pass is going to be a touchdown, and boom, every pass is a touchdown. And we heard from Bears linebacker TJ Edwards, one of the big leaders in the middle of this defense, about the progress he's seen from Caleb Williams in this regard. And one of the ways that Caleb kind of surprised them a little bit, got under their skin early with some of the things he was able to do as a quarterback.
TJ, Kevin and Jalen both talked about you guys trying to confuse and challenge Caleb. What have you learned about Caleb as you guys have tried to push him and show him everything he needs to know?
Yeah. I think we started right off the gate and, last year coming in, I think we were still trying to understand the scheme a little bit. So it was a little more stagnant, but I think this year we started off with a bunch of disguise and a bunch of movement and things like that to, see what we can do. But I thought, from day one, he's gotten better with it. You definitely see some things that you don't really expect from a rookie to do. He moved us a couple times with his eyes. The first day had me and Tremaine hot about it, but it was, he's impressed us for sure. And he's just like everybody. He wants to continue to get better, and I think he's handled it well for sure.
This Bears defense has been trying particularly to test Caleb Williams, to disguise coverages, to throw different looks at him, right? They're not coming out, when we think about like preseason games, in a very quote unquote vanilla defense where you just kind of run a lot of your base coverages because, you're not trying to show the opponent too much in the preseason game. Or maybe, you might think in OTAs, minicamp, okay, are you really trying to run all your most complicated stuff, or are you just trying to get back to basics and say, all right, let's just stick to our basic coverages and kind of make sure we got those down as a defense before we get to more crazy stuff? But because so much of this defense has all been together before, you're essentially 10 of your 11 starters from 10 of your 11 starters this year were on the team last year. Not all of them, I guess, were directly starters, but like you brought so much cohesion back on this defense that they could come into OTAs and minicamp and really pick right back up and go, all right, let's do the complicated stuff. Like let's push ourselves and test ourselves and grow, and also then push and test Caleb Williams as almost as difficultly, that's not quite a word, but almost as intensely as they could, right? Like they're throwing it all at him and saying, all right, rookie, here you go. No softball coverage is coming in here. No easy plays for you. You're going to have to earn it every single time. And so the fact that Caleb has been able to be as good as he is against the defense that's genuinely really trying to confuse him, trick him, throw things that veteran quarterbacks have to adjust for, not just what a rookie quarterback, like a rookie quarterback is already trying to figure out, okay, what's my play? What do I call it? What does that route mean? What depth is DJ Moore going to be? Okay, DJ Moore's at 12 yards. Rome Odunze is at 16 yards. Keenan Allen is at 5 yards. So on my third step, I should look at Keenan. I mean, there's just all these different things he's trying to think of. And then also read the coverage and figure out, okay, the safety moved there, the linebacker moved there. That means it's cover 3. And if this is cover 3, then that means Rome Odunze's route will be covered, but DJ Moore's route will be open. And all that happens in 3 seconds from the snap of the ball, right? Like all these different things that Caleb has to deal with. And then, on top of it, oh, actually, we disguised the coverage. So just because the safety moved there doesn't mean that's how it, like, he's moving there, but he's to make you think it's one coverage, but actually he's moving into a different spot than he normally would in that coverage. So it's actually something else that you didn't think it was. So you have to be able to really see the whole field there. Like, they're throwing all that at Caleb. And I think the fact that he's not struggling more with that is impressive in and of itself. Like, yes, of course, he's going to throw some interceptions at this. Like that, yeah, it's practice. Like, he's going to just throw a ball. Like, he's not actually taking sacks. So even when he would get sacked, he's still going to throw it. Like, he's still going to, quote unquote, force passes that, because he's got no reason to throw the ball away. At practice, there's no reason to waste a rep by throwing the ball away or spiking it or anything. So you're gonna take shots downfield. You're gonna force passes in there because you might as well attempt it and be wrong with no consequences versus attempt it and maybe be right and surprise yourself. Or maybe you successfully look off two veteran linebackers in Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards who have played a lot of snaps and seen a lot of quarterbacks and aren't easily fooled all the time. But Caleb Williams, in his early practices as a rookie, comes in and looks them off with his eyes. Like, that's such a clear signal of Caleb Williams' talent and ability, even from the get-go. Like, yes, this matches up with what expectations were. And that, okay, even though maybe the cadence has some issues still, which is normal for a rookie quarterback, and maybe he's thrown a couple of interceptions here or there on plays where he's just a little bit late. Like, we've heard about him making progress in terms of anticipation throughout this process as he gets more comfortable with, how long does it take DJ Moore to get from the numbers to the hash? How early do I have to let go of that ball? How much velocity do I have to put on it to float it there so that he'll run to it as opposed to needing to see him there first? Like, how can I lead him properly? Just getting used to how fast he runs, how he runs certain routes, how each receiver runs routes, and in different spots and different places to be able to then be a step ahead of that and be instinctively responding and not just like having to think through all those details we talked about earlier. So to me, I don't know how you could leave minicamp, OTAs, mandatory minicamp, anything but encouraged about everything we've seen and heard from Caleb Williams. Again, like I said at the beginning, that doesn't mean you got to get your Super Bowl tickets now because he's going to be the MVP as a rookie. Like, we can be excited and encouraged without getting too carried away. Just like we don't have to be like discouraged and upset by any mistakes he makes. Like, we can kind of have a realistic approach to how this is going to go for the young quarterback. So that feels like where things stand now with him in the good and the bad through the off-season program. To help that rookie quarterback, the Bears went out and added a veteran in the most veteran of the sense with Marcedes Lewis coming back to the Bears tight end room. Normally we wouldn't talk a lot about a number 3 tight end, but Marcedes Lewis is a particularly interesting story here. And more important, I would say he is the most important number 3 tight end in the NFL. So we'll look at Marcedes Lewis's pretty incredible career and journey to get to this point and his value to this Bears team beyond just some pretty good blocking as a number 3 tight end. Next on Locked On Bears. Don't forget to check out the Locked On Podcast Network's 24/7 live stream on the Locked On Sports Today YouTube channel or the Amazon Fire TV channels app. We've got programming literally all day and all night, every day, to bring you the biggest stories without all the argument and screaming you get on, the ESPN shows and the Fox Sports debate television. Locked On Sports Today has the analysis, opinions, and news you need, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And covering your team every day means we talk about even the small transactions like Marcedes Lewis coming back for his second season in Chicago, his 19th season in the NFL after having just turned the age of 40. Among non-quarterbacks and special teams players, I think he's 3 or 4 games behind the NFL record for most games played by a non-QB/special teams player, which is not like a real NFL record, but he's about, assuming he plays 4 games this season, he will surpass, I actually don't have the list in front of me, the players who played more games that weren't a quarterback or a special teams player. Because usually, kickers and punters play into their 40s. Tom Brady broke all the rules for quarterbacks playing into their 40s. But tight ends don't. And most other positions don't. I mean, like a couple offensive linemen here or there. Calais Campbell's like 38. I mean, he's, Jason Peters is older, but like this is pretty rare, especially at the tight end position. And he comes to Chicago or comes back to Chicago and brought this last season a certain amount of value as that veteran leader, right? He doesn't play a lot of snaps on offense. 10 in a game is a good number for him. Some games he'll play 1 or 2. Some games he'll play 15. But he's not a starter. He's not even number 2 on the depth chart. Like it's Cole Kmet, it's Gerald Everett, then it's Marcedes Lewis, and then the likes of, they signed Tommy Sweeney and Stephen Carlson. But like Marcedes Lewis is your number 3 tight end. He's a blocker. He gets like 4 catches a season. Right? This is not a high impact on the field player. His blocks are impactful. I'll give him that, but it's not a lot of snaps. But like having so much experience and being able to be that leader and that tone setter in the locker room of just like the veteran that all the guys can look to as like, oh yeah, that's how you carry yourself on and off the field. That's how you practice. That's how you take care of your body. That's how you talk to the media. That's how you do every aspect of being a professional football player. Marcedes Lewis provides that. It's almost like a coach in the locker room, a coach on the field type player. Like I think about across sports, right? In the NBA, Udonis Haslem was this for the Miami Heat for the last couple of seasons where he never played except garbage time. But what he served as was like a liaison for the coach, somewhere in between a coach and a player where, the coaching staff could go to him kind of privately and communicate messages to the team through him where it would be coming from a player, right? Coaches are your boss. Players are your coworkers. And so like when it's your coworker, someone who's on your level, even if he's a decade or 2 older than you, in the case of Marcedes Lewis, like when it comes from another player, it's like, oh, he's one of us. He's out there practicing, sweating, working his tail off like us. Like when it comes from him, it hits differently than your coach who's like your boss and he means well for you, but it's like, but he's not one of us. He's not out here working. There can be a little bit of a disconnect there, but having a veteran player like that to be that bridge between coach and player is super valuable, especially on a Bears team as young as this one. They've added some veterans, but obviously Marcedes Lewis is the oldest player on the Bears. He's one of the oldest players in the NFL, but like he's by far the oldest player on the Chicago Bears. Marcedes Lewis is the only player on the Chicago Bears roster that was alive before the Bears won the Super Bowl 20 in 1985. Marcedes Lewis was born in 84. He's 40 years, just turned 40 years old. He was alive before the 85 Bears. He's the only player on the team. The next oldest player is your long snapper, Patrick Scales, at age 36. And then after him, it's Cairo Santos and Keenan Allen at 32. And then one of your backup offensive linemen, Aviante Collins, is 31. But it's not just Marcedes Lewis being 40 years old. It's also 18 seasons of experience. Like Keenan Allen is second in experience, I think, in 12 years. He came in at age 20. He's played 12 seasons in the NFL. Cairo Santos played 10. Patrick Scales played 9. He came in a little bit later on. Like you realize Marcedes Lewis was drafted in 2006. Marcedes Lewis was in the same first round as Jay Cutler. Marcedes Lewis was picked 29 picks before Devin Hester. Like Devin Hester is going into the Hall of Fame in August in the Hall of Fame game from the same draft class as Marcedes Lewis, who is still playing for the Chicago Bears. Like he entered the NFL the year the Bears went to the Super Bowl the last time. He has seen every Bears season since then from afar. Now he's a member of the team, but like it's kind of crazy how long he has been around in this league. Like if you go back and look at like who was playing in 2006, and I mean it'd be fun to take the whole stroll down memory lane here, but like the players he's crossed over as contemporaries of like, oh yes, Marcedes Lewis was in the league as at the same time as, blank old player. He just missed Jerry Rice by a couple of seasons. I just was checking that to see, but like to be in the league at the same time as Caleb Williams and, Drew Bledsoe and some of these other quarterbacks it was wild. But like he's got then so much experience. He's been in so many offenses. He's seen everything. Like you're not going to stump Marcedes Lewis. And for him to be able to not just be an experienced guy, but like know how to use that experience to lead, to set the example. Like he's not the most vocal guy, but when he speaks, you listen. You absolutely listen. He's big dog for a reason. He is the sort of the the dad of that locker room. I mean, heck, he's old enough to be some of these guys' dads. I mean, Roma Dunze is 22. Roma Dunze is 22. Marcedes Lewis is 40. Like, he's 18 years older than him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's, technically speaking, like, Caleb Williams is 21. He's 19 years older than Caleb Williams. Like, he's literally old enough to be some of these guys' dads. Like, he'd be a young father, I suppose, but, like, not ridiculously young father in that case. Like, that's crazy. I mean, it's like LeBron James in the NBA, like, playing with his son. Like, he's old enough to be these guys' dads. He's literally old enough to be someone's dad who's coming into the NBA. So, like, that's the kind of thing where it's like, Marcedes Lewis is not expensive. He's not costing us a ton on the salary cap. And I think the locker room and culture and leadership value he brings, plus he's probably the best number 3 tight end on the roster. Like, he's an upgrade over what they had at number 3 tight end. Like, he is a really good blocker still. He's not a dynamic receiver. He hasn't been a dynamic receiver for a while, but when you throw it to him, he catches it. He's just not fast. He's not a great route runner. He's not explosive or like dynamic, but like, check down to Marcedes Lewis. He'll catch it and he'll rumble forward for a few yards. Like, great. For a number 3 tight end who blocks well, that's phenomenal. And then all the added value you get on top of that with him as a leader, as a veteran in this locker room is so valuable on a team that's just so young. I mean, this team has, I think it's 6 players over the age of 30, 5 or 6 players over the age of 30. That's it. So it's not like there's no experience. There's a lot of the guys in their late 20s, but like guys who have really been around the block, guys who were on this team when MySpace was popular. Like, that's Marcedes Lewis. So to be able to have that perspective, I think is going to be really valuable. And I'm glad to have Marcedes Lewis back. And it signals something about the Chicago Bears and where they are right now. That a player who's 40 years old in year 18 wants to be here. And be here without Luke Getsy, right? We thought Luke Getsy was kind of what brought Marcedes Lewis here because of the Packers connection. It's like, okay, Marcedes knew the offense already. He knew the coach. It was easy for him to plug into Chicago. It made sense. But now he has no reason to be back with the Bears other than wanting to be in Chicago, wanting to play for Matt Eberflus and this team that's a whole new offense. So, like, it signals that, hey, even like veteran players that are at the end of their career believe in this team, this culture, and this organization. And that has not always been the case. He could have potentially signed with other teams, maybe even other teams that were closer to a Super Bowl than where the Bears are, which is still making good progress. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, that says something about guys wanting to be here, even in the late stages of their career. Maybe it signals that a veteran pass rusher like Calais Campbell or Yannick Ngakoue or somebody else might also be willing to come to this team at some point. I imagine that might be closer to the start of training camp, but either way, if the Bears make any other big veteran signings like Marcedes Lewis, you can be sure we'll break it down for you right here on the Locked On Bears podcast. So make sure you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts, because that's going to be the best way to keep up with all of our daily, in-depth Chicago Bears news and analysis. Thanks for making Locked On Bears your first listen today. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you're looking for that second listen, don't forget the Locked On Sports Today 24/7 live stream on YouTube or the Amazon Fire TV channels app for free, 24 hours a day. Sports talk from our local experts here on the Locked On Podcast Network. But Locked On Bears will be here for you as well, trying to give you another opportunity each and every day to bear down.